Hey everyone, this is part 4 in the Create Your WhatsApp Web Clone with Appwrite and Vue 3. In this video we're going to finish off what we started in terms of the sidebar. We're going to have all the necessary views to create your first chat or group. We're going to finish off all the necessary UI elements, and in the video after that we're finally going to hook it up to the backend, to the Appwrite backend, and actually create the group. And that's where things will start to get really interesting when we actually make this functional. So let's actually jump right into things. So as you can see over here, we left things in not the greatest state because I can't actually see the initial sidebar that we created. So let's go to the code, and if we look in our global store, you'll see that we left it as new group info and we needed to leave it as context. So if we just move this back to context and refresh the page, we should see that we now have what we did. Cool. So the first step is to hook up the functionality. When I click the plus, I want it to take me to the view where I can start a new chat. So let's create a sidebar file called new chat sidebar.vue. And this is going to have a template, and it's going to have a header, and also have script setup lang equals ts. All right. Now that we have that, let's actually just right here, new chat sidebar, and we're just going to hook this up to our plus icon. So when I click on the plus icon, I want it to show me this chat sidebar. So the first thing we need to do is go to application, and we're going to say that we want our new chat sidebar, and we only want to show it via if sidebar view is equal to sidebar view dot and new chat. All right, so once that is set up, all we need to do is go to our contacts sidebar, and we say when I click on the plus icon, so at click, so I want to say show new chat view. And let's create the function for that. So if we look over here, we want the function show new chat view. And all we have to do here is reference the global store. Const global store is equal to use global store. And all over here we have to do is global store dot show sidebar view. And we want sidebar view dot new chat. And with that in place, we should be able to click plus, and we're now shown the new chat sidebar. So let's refresh the page since we have no way of getting back there. So now we have that hooked up. What we actually want to do is create the new chat sidebar view. So if we go to our new chat sidebar, we're going to have our header, and this is going to be like a big solid green chunk with a back icon in it. So class is width full, height 28. It has a custom background color, so let's actually create that in our tailwind.config CJS. And this is where Tailwind allows us to create custom colors and custom everything really, in case the defaults don't quite answer what we need. So we want extend colors, and inside colors we have custom, and this is going to be WhatsApp 1 will be equal to a specific color, which I'll copy over in a second, and we want WhatsApp 2, which is going to be a slightly darker shade of that color. So WhatsApp 1 is going to be 00A884, and WhatsApp 2 is going to be equal to 008069. So pretty similar colors, and we'll see what they look like in a second. So if I go back to my new chat sidebar, we need to actually set it to the darker color one. So we want BG custom, and we see here we want WhatsApp 2, and flex items end. We have P4 for padding and text white. All right, and let's actually see if we can see anything interesting just now. So if I go to here, you can see that we have this dark green WhatsApp-like color. All right, so inside that, we're going to need a div, which will be a flex container, flex with the items center, and inside here we're going to have a left arrow This will allow us to go back. So we want arrow left icon, arrow left icon. And we just need to put that over here, arrow left icon, which will have a class of width -6 and a pointer, a cursor pointer, which will indicate that it is actually clickable. And we'll just add text explaining what this is. So div class is equal to font semi-bold, just close up that div, and it will also be large text, LG, and have a margin left of 4, just so it's spaced a little bit out from the arrow. And if we take a look what that looks like, so we do have the margin left 4, we don't actually see the text, so we can put in here, so we have to say back to new chat, and let's just go back. So if we go back, nothing happens yet, because we have to actually hook up the click event. So when I click on the back button, click, so all we want to do is show the previous sidebar view. So let's just say on back, on back, we create a function here that goes back, and all we want to do is global, let's just do const above here, not there, const global store is equal to use global store, and when I go back, I want to do global store dot show sidebar view dot context. And essentially, if we hook this up right, so I can now go back to the main view, go to our new chat view, go back to the main one, go back and forth. Awesome. So let's actually continue building out the interface here for creating the new group. So we'll have a new section below here where we'll be able to add contacts or add new emails to the group. So below the header, we're going to create a new section, and this section will have a class of px2, py2, which can obviously be shortened to a padding of 2 all around. Border bottom, we want border bottom to be gray 300. All right, and inside the input, we're going to need a input, and essentially this will just be type equals text, and the placeholder will be equal to search, if I can spell that, contacts, and we will make it vModel, or basically two-way bind to vModel will be equal to search. And let's just create that down here. So if we want to be able to bind that, so let's create the const search is equal to a ref. All right. And now that we're already here, I noticed beforehand that there's a small bug in the input component, which we're going to need to fix. So essentially, the one thing we need to add is we want to pass a model value to the props, and this is like it's a custom prop that Vue has that will allow us to two-way bind to a custom component, which is just going to be a string. So that's one thing we need to do. Another thing we need to do is create an emitter, const emit equals define emits, and this will just be the same thing that we defined up here. We have emit update model value, but we want it to be slightly different. We want update model value. We need to create a function that should be called when the input is updated, so on update. So we have an event that we get, and it's going to be of type event. We want a target, which is going to be equal to event.target, which is as HTML input element. And then we just want to emit our update model value with the target.value. Target.value. And then all we need to change up here is instead of this vModel of model, we want this to be model value. And then on input, so instead of emit inline, we want it basically to just on update. All right, that will just fix a few things with our two-way binding, and we no longer need this model thing here. or this ref. So essentially what happens is we pass through, if we look back up here, we pass through search, and it behind the scenes gets converted to this model value. We set it as the inputs value, and then when we update it, we just update it as the target value, and that will fix things with our input, which means we just have to quickly fix our login. Actually, we don't even need to fix our login. This will just work. Never mind that. And let's continue on. So first of all, let's see what this looks like. If I go back here and refresh, I go to plus. So we see here we now have a search contacts interface. Cool. Now that we have this search contacts, we don't actually have any contacts, so we'll need a way to create a new group. Meaning, in this interface, what we'll have here is a list of existing chats or groups that we've already created, and we can go back into them if we don't have them. So we're going to want a way to create a new group. So for that, we're going to need to create a new section, and this section is just going to have a class of padding y of 2, and in here we're going to create a div which will contain our button to create a new group. So class height of 16, width full, padding y of 4, flex, items center, px2. Okay, we're going to also want a hover color and a cursor pointer, hover bg gray 100 and cursor pointer. Inside this container, we're going to want another div, and this will be the actual button. So we want a div which has a class of height 12, a width 12. We want it to be completely rounded. We want this to have the custom background, but we want the first custom background, it's slightly lighter. We want flex. We also want it to be everything to be centered, so items center and justify center. All right, now in that, all we need to have is our users icon, which will symbolize creating a new group, and a bit of text. So first let's import the users icon just by typing here users icon, and then let's paste that in here. Our users icon will have the standard styling for our icons, which is h6, width 6, and text white. And then beneath the div that contains the users icon, we're just going to want to have a bit of text. Div class is equal to text large and margin left of 2, and it will just say new group. So we take a look at what this looks like. We'll see here we just have a new group button. All right, awesome. So what we have to do now is when I click on this new group button, or this whole row, I want to create a new group. So let's actually hook that up right now. So if we go to our new chat sidebar and we say function show create group view, and over here we're just going to say global store dot show sidebar view dot create. We want new group participants rather. So when I show the create group view, I want it to basically show all the participants that I can add to the group, or add completely new participants if I don't have them in my contact list. So let's just say when I click on this gray background thing, so when I click, so show create group view, and why is this red? We need to import our input. All right, we'll get to that in a second. Going back to our new chat sidebar, we have the new chat sidebar, which will now, when I click it, it will take me somewhere else. We haven't yet developed that view, so it's not going to do anything. The reason why the contact sidebar is red is because we haven't provided a vModel to it. So we're just going to say vModel, and it's going to be another search bar. So let's just call that search. And over here, let's just say const search is equal to a ref which is empty with an empty string. Let's import that, and everything's good here. All right, so now that we've created the functionality to take us to the create group view, the next thing we need to do is create that the view where you add the participants. So we're going to call this new group participants sidebar.view. And we're going to have our standard stuff, the template, and just say div, and it's going to say new group participants view, which is just how we're going to test that it's hooked up properly. And over here, we're just going to add our script setup lang equals ts. And I don't know why it keeps doing this. Let's just reload the window, and that should take care of things. All right. Sometimes VS Code just goes on the fritz and it incorrectly says that there's an issue here. So we just reload the window and that fixes things. So once we have our new group participant sidebar, we have to go back to our application and hook that up. So we want our new group participants sidebar, and we only want it to show v-if, and you already know what's coming next. Sidebar view is equal to sidebar view dot new group participants. So we can actually already test that out over here. So I go to create new group, and it shows us the correct view here. So let's start styling it. The first thing that we're going to need is the same header. So we'll just create this. We're going to need the same header as we have in the new chat sidebar, where we have this header, which is a custom background. So we're just going to need the same exact thing here, but we're going to need one small difference for the stylistic thing. So let's create a main, and inside the main, let's give it a class of height, full, width, full, and relative. And we're going to need this relative because we're going to have to position absolute an item in here, and we want it to be relative to this parent. The arrow we're going to need is going to, the element that's going to be position absolute is just going to be an arrow that will take us to the next step, but we need it to be relative to this parent, which is the only reason why we need a wrapper as opposed to the new chat sidebar where we just have the header right here. But we're going to need the same exact header, so let's just go back to the new chat sidebar and just copy this entire header and paste that right into here. And you'll see a little red under on back because we haven't yet implemented it. Let's change this text to add group participants. Let's create the function on back, which will essentially just take us back to the new chat sidebar view. So we're going to want a global store equals use global store, and we just want to say global store dot show sidebar view, and we want a sidebar view dot new chat. So looking over here, we'll see we now have a way of going. Well, we haven't imported the back arrow button, so arrow left icon. So we're going to need that. Arrow left icon. So if I go back here now, we have the add group participants. If I go back, it'll take me back to new chat. So we have almost the full way through. The next thing we need is the search bar to add the group participants, and we're going to need a way of indicating which participants we've added. So we're going to have like those little badges. If I just show, let's say tags input view, just to show you what we're going to be adding. So if you look here, when we say we can add, let's say test@gmail.com, and when I press enter, it adds like a little tag. So we're going to want the same thing for the people we're adding to the group. So let's actually work on that first. So we're going to need a new section after the main, rather inside the main, sorry, after the header. We're going to need section. Whoop, I'm not sure what happened there. Let's make things a bit bigger again. We want section. And our section is going to have a class. Let's make this one step bigger, I don't remember. Yeah, there we go. So we have the section has a class of px4, it has py2, it has border bottom, it has a border bottom gray 300. This is similar again to the new chat sidebar, but we're going to need to do something a bit different here. So the first thing, we want to have the container for our tags. I'm going to call them badges just because that's the standard name. And we're going to want a generic badge component, so I'm just going to call them badges. So we want a class of a margin bottom 2 space x2 and then space x2 and then space y2 as well. And this will just give us a horizontal and vertical space between each tag. And now we're going to need to create a badge component. So let's go into our components and create a new file and call it badge.vue. And let's actually create this badge component. So the first thing we're going to need is the template. We're going to have as well the script setup lang equals ts. And then we also want the interface props, where we're going to have the tag or the badge's text. We're going to define props, and it's going to be props. We also want a way to emit data from here, which is define emits and click. This will be an array. And essentially all we want over here is when I want to, well, after I added a participant, I want to be able to remove them in case I made a mistake. So that's going to allow us to click on an X. All right. Since it's already running a bit long, I'm going to actually just paste in a component here, and I'll link to the badge component in the description of this video. It's just for the sake of moving a bit faster. So let's paste in this template. And don't worry, I'll have the link, just look in the description, and it'll be the badge component. Since this isn't really something we want to take time and explain. And if we go back to our new group participants sidebar, we're going to have the people who we're inviting. So before we actually get to that point, let's first create the input where we add people. So we're going to have an input underneath this div, and it's going to be type is equal to text. We're going to have a placeholder, which is going to be type contact name. We're going to have, when I press enter, that's when we're going to create the badge. You have to enter. We're going to say on enter. And we're going to need a V model, which is going to be email, which is going to be the email of the person who we're inviting. So we're going to do a few things. The first thing is function on enter. We're going to need to do create a const is email is equal to ref. And that's the way of hooking up the email to there. Let's import ref. And then what we're going to need is basically something like this. When I press enter, so I'm going to want to add the person who I'm adding to some data. In order to do this, we have to create a new global store, or rather a new store, which will allow us to store the group data. So let's do that. So inside stores, we're going to create a new file called groupstore.ts. And this is going to be very similar to our global store, but we basically want to define store. We're going to say export const use group store. This is going to be equal to define store, and this is going to be group store. We're going to have our state, which is a arrow function which returns an object, and we're going to return that. Now we're going to need a few interfaces here. We're going to have an interface called group interface group, which basically has an ID optionally, and it will have a name. We're going to need a interface called new group, which will have a name, and it will have the people who are being invited to it, which is going to be an array of emails or strings. And then we're going to need the actual state. So interface state, we'll create a new group, which is going to be a new group, and we're going to return the state as the object as state. Cool. And here we just need a new group, which has a name of it, which is an empty string at the moment, and invitees, which is going to be an empty array. All right. We're going to need a few actions in here. If you remember, actions are just a way of acting upon this state in a more controlled manner. So we're going to want to update new group name, where we can edit the name of the group that we're creating. Or we'll say this dot new group dot name is equal to name. We're going to want to add new group invitee, which is member, which is going to be a string. And this is how we're going to add the people to the invitees array, dot push member. We're going to want to be able to remove new group invitee, is if we regret inviting someone, so we can always remove them from the new group. So this dot new group dot invitees is equal to this dot new group dot invitees dot filter, where we have an invitee. Invitee just means a person who's being invited. I hope I didn't make up that word, but it makes sense to me. And invitee does not equal to member. All right. And the final method we're going to need for now is set new group invitees, which is just going to be a way of overriding all the people who are in it. Invitees, which is going to be equal to a array of strings. And this is just going to be this.new group invitees is equal to invitees. All right, that's all we need from the group store. And if we go to this new group participants sidebar, we're going to be using that group store. So we want const group store is equal to use group store. And we're going to need to import that. So we just want to say copy this line down. This is going to turn into group store. And this is going to be use group store. I'll get rid of the sidebar view. So now we have the group store here. So when I click enter on the input, so we want group store dot add new group invitee. And it's going to be the email, which is this ref that we have here, which is equal to the inputs value dot value. Cool. And then once I press enter, I also want to clear out the input. So email.value is equal to an empty string. Cool. When I click back, so it goes to the right place. And now that we have our way of adding in the invitees, so I want to create the badges. So let's create the badges. So if I scroll back up to here, we have this element where we wanted to create our badges. So we just now say badge. And we're going to v4. We're going to loop over all the invitees. Invitee in group store dot new group dot invitees. The text of the badge will be invitee. And when I click on the badge, or rather on the close icon within the badge, because remember this is just an event that comes from within here. So when I click on it, it will actually remove it. So we just want to say, I don't know, when I click it, I want a group store dot remove new group invitee and the invitee. And this should just work. Usually I don't code through it without testing it before, but it's already almost 30 minutes, so let's test that out now. So create a new plus, new group, and when I type test@gmail.com, enter. So you see now we have a badge here, ASD, we have a new badge, and then we can also remove them, and that works for that. I'm going to call it off at this point. We have very little left to do before we actually hook this up to the backend and we actually want to create the group, but I don't really want to create such long videos. So I'll add finishing off this section when I can actually create the new group into the next video, and the next video will also contain actually creating the new group in Appwrite. That will include, creating a new database, which we haven't even talked about yet. We're going to be creating a function which that is another subject we haven't yet talked about. So the next video is going to be really interesting, and I hope to see you there. Alright, if you enjoy this video, comment, like, subscribe, since that's what you're supposed to say at the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, have a good one.